Hey everybody, I'm Mike with MK Outdoor Journal, and this is The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second. So uncover your keyboard and fire up your fingers. It's time to join the conversation. Hey everybody, I'm Mike, and yes, you are not hallucinating. I am live, long time, no see, right? Decided to come live for this Right of the People single shot, because, wow, something cool happened in the last couple days. But before we get into that, I would like to say hello to everybody who's out there so far. Just Kingpin, Jacob S., Warsaw Patriot, and Mountain View have stopped in. If you are out there and I haven't said hi to you, sound off in the chat. That way I can know you're here and say hello. Because, you know what? Even though I needed to take a break from doing this, I've missed you guys. So, it's, you know, great to see you and know you're out there, right? Assuming, you know, there's anybody who actually finds this dumpster fire worth watching, which may or may not be the case. G23, hello, hello. Warsaw, how are ya? Let me click on over here and see if there's anybody out there. Hold on a second, fellas. And any ladies who may happen to be here. Yep, okay. According to this, there are actually 2 people watching, so hey, God bless freedom. That's right. God bless freedom. As long as Bruin is around, let's spread freedom. Well, this case only really indirectly touches on Bruin in that it's a Second Amendment case. This case is Cargill v. Garland. This is about bump stocks. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who say, bump stocks, who gives a crap? It's just a range toy. I don't have one, never had one, never want to have one. I think they're silly. And to some extent, well, I kind of agree. I never had one, never really wanted one, except maybe to put on a 1022, because I think they're a silly range toy that serves to do nothing but give you the giggles and eat up ammunition, which ain't cheap. But when Donald Trump issued an order to the ATF to ban bump stocks following that atrocity in Las Vegas, where bump stocks may or may not, I still have yet to see any definitive proof that they actually were, where bump stocks may or may not have been banned, have been used, it opened up, as Warsaw said, a whole can of worms for the ATF to do other stuff. This case, as far as I'm concerned, isn't about the bump stock. It isn't about that piece of plastic. It isn't about whether this range toy has any practical use. It isn't about whether I, as an individual, want to have one. It isn't about whether I, as an individual, do have one. It's about government overreach. It is about an unelected alphabet agency overreaching and overstepping the boundaries of its power to rewrite federal law without benefit of running legislation through Congress, which is the proper way to change things. Because you see, in our country, laws have sections that have definitions. Everything that the law talks about is defined within that law. And the only way to change that is by changing the law, not by some unelected bureaucrat appointed by a politician to seize the power and change it by fiat. This case sought to change that. There have been a couple of bump stock cases going through, one of which is pretty much dead in the water. But I said a while ago that this one, I think it was the Apashian case, But I said a while ago that this one, the Cargill case, is really going to have an effect. And boy, oh boy, did it. But before we get into that, I'd like to welcome Warsaw here to the panel. Hey, Giz, how you doing out there? If you have a link, Gizzard, feel free to hop on, brother. And if you don't have a link, let me know and I'll shoot you one because you should have one. Hey, how you doing, man? Long time no see.
Long time no see, man.
What's up with the Warsaw Patriot tonight?
Yeah, not much. Just saw you go live and I said, you know what? I haven't seen you for like what, a couple months, dude. It's
been a while.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I think the last time I went live was with the Nicholas Cruz verdict. Not the verdict, but the sentencing.
You mean the bullshit prosecutor was trying to frame-inize that kid?
No. Nicholas Cruz, the Parkland shooter, when he got sentenced to life instead of death.
Oh, yeah, Nicholas Cruz. Dude, I'm surprised they didn't give him the death sentence.
Well, there were mitigating circumstances that, he had a hard life and all that. So, we shouldn't give him the death penalty. Bullshit. But I digress. Very, very heavily digress in this case. Grim, how you doing out there?
For once, I like to see Grim come on a panel one time.
I think Grim gets a link. He's welcome to come if he wishes to do so. Same with, anybody that I send a link to. I send you a link for a reason, folks. So if you want to come on, come on. If you don't, hey, glad to have you out there watching, right? So let's get into this topic. This is an article from Reason Magazine in the Volok conspiracy. Bumpstock ban regulation isn't authorized by federal law, says Fifth Circuit on banc. So what's happened so far, folks, is that this case has went through the regular court, then it went to the Court of Appeals, a 3-judge panel in the Fifth Circuit. And then it was heard by an en banc panel of the Fifth Circuit, which means all of them. This is from 1/6/2023. From the majority opinion by Judge Jennifer Walker Elrod in Cargill v. Garland. Since the National Firearms Act of 1934, federal law has heavily regulated machine guns. Indeed, as proposed, that law was known to many as the Anti-Machine Gun Bill. The possession or transfer of a machine gun was eventually banned through the Gun Control Act of 1968 and the Firearms Owners Protection Act of 1986, with some guns grandfathered in EV. Today, the possession of a machine gun is a federal crime, carrying a penalty of up to 10 years incarceration. This appeal concerns a regulation promulgated by the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, purporting to interpret the federal prohibition on machine guns as extending to bump stocks. A bump stock is a firearm attachment that allows a shooter to harness the natural recoil of a semi-automatic weapon to quickly re-engage the trigger after firing, enabling him to shoot at an increased rate of speed. When ATF first considered the type of bump stocks at issue here, it understood that they were not machine guns. Pardon me. ATF maintained this position for over a decade, issuing many interpretation letters to that effect to members of the public. That's right, folks. At first, when they were presented with the idea of the bump stock, the ATF said, yeah, sure, that's not a machine gun. And they held that position for over 10 years. And they issued many, many, many opinion letters stating that. But then, Donald, I almost said Donald Chump. I guess in this instance, that's the case. He was a chump. Donald Trump said, that bump stocks are bad. Okay. So they went ahead and illegally, as this Fifth Circuit ruling says, banned them. But the ATF reversed its longstanding position in 2018, subjecting anyone who possessed a bump stock to criminal liability. ATF reversed this position to a great extent in response to the tragic events that occurred in Las Vegas on October 1st, 2017. On that day, a deranged gunman murdered dozens of innocent men and women and injured hundreds more. To carry out this appalling crime, the gunman used many weapons and utilized many accessories. including bump stocks. Public pressure to ban bump stocks was tremendous. Multiple bills to that effect were introduced in both houses of Congress. But before they could be considered in earnest, ATF published the regulation at issue here, short-circuiting the legislative process. Appellant Michael Cargill surrendered several bump stocks to the government following publication of the regulation at issue. He now challenges the legality of that regulation, arguing that a bump stock does not fall within the definition of a machine gun as set forth in federal law, and thus that the ATF lacked the authority to issue a regulation purporting to define the term as such, or the item as, the term as such. Cargill is correct. A plain reading of the statutory language, paired with close consideration of the mechanics of a semi-automatic firearm, reveals that a bump stock is excluded from the technical definition of machine gun set forth in the Gun Control Act of the National Firearms Act. But even if that conclusion were incorrect, the rule of lenity would still require us to interpret the statute against imposing criminal liability. A rich legal tradition supports the well-known rule that penal laws are to be construed strictly. As Chief Justice Marshall explained long ago, the rule is founded on the tenderness of the law for the rights of individuals and on the plain principle that the power of punishment is vested in the legislative, not in the judicial department. It is the legislature, not the court, which is to define a crime and ordain its punishment. The government's regulation violates these principles. As an initial matter, it purports to allow ATF, rather than Congress, to set forth the scope of criminal prohibitions. Indeed, the government would outlaw bump stocks by administrative fiat, even though the very same agency routinely interpreted the ban on machine guns as not applying to the type of bump stocks at issue here. Nor can we say that the statutory definition unambiguously supports the government's interpretation. As noted above, we conclude that it unambiguously does not. But even if we are wrong, the statute is at least ambiguous in this regard. And if the statute is ambiguous, Congress must cure that ambiguity, not the federal courts. Of the 16 members of our court, 13 of us agree that an act of Congress is required to prohibit bump stocks, and that we therefore must reverse the upholding of the bump stock ban. 12 members reverse on lenity grounds, and 8 members reverse on the ground that federal law unambiguously fails to cover non-mechanical bump stocks. So, there we go, folks. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in an en banc session said exactly the same thing I've been saying since 2018. The ATF lacks the authority to redefine federal law via regulation. Federal law must be redesigned and redefined by Congress, not an unelected bureaucracy. This is huge, folks. Not just because of bump stocks. Again, bump stocks aren't the point. Bump stocks are simply the vehicle by which this principle got spoken. This will also have an effect on the frames and receivers rule that the ATF just put out that says that, a hunk of plastic is a firearm. Even though it doesn't meet the legal definition of firearm, the ATF says it's a firearm, so it is a firearm. They can't do that. This is definitely going to have an effect, along with the EPA case, that this is going to have an effect on the frames and receivers lawsuits. Also, any day now, the ATF is set to drop their new final rule on pistol braces. And think of the circumstances here. In this bump stock case, the Fifth Circuit said 13-3 that the ATF had previously, for a decade or more, said, oh yeah, bump stocks are fine. And then suddenly said, oh, no, they're not. Guess what they've been doing with pistol braces, folks? For decades, at least 10 years, they've said, pistol braces? Yeah, good to go. They're awesome. Go right ahead. Now they're going to say, nah, they're not. They make your weapon a short-barreled rifle. If they can't do that with bump stocks, they can't do that with pistol braces. They can't do that with semi-automatics. They can't do that with X, Y, and Z down the road that they're going to try to do it with. I think this is huge. This is great. Regardless of whether you like bump stocks or not, this is great. What do you think, Warsaw?
I think we're headed in the right direction, and I think, since we've taken over the House, in Congress, finally, after, 2-3 years now?
Yeah.
I mean, we've gone through, I hate to say it, but we've gone through so much goddamn damage in our country.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's time for a change of powers to take over finally. And as far as the ATF, I think they definitely need to keep their asses in check and enforce the laws in the books and not the ones that are not law.
Yeah, I think that this is a great start in that direction. Let me go out to the chat and say hello. HESA, you're out there. Hello. Chris from the 740. Welcome, my fellow Buckeye. Let's see.
That's a question for myself to be thinking.
What's that?
Theoretically, is the FBI obligated to take over another agency, especially the ATF? So if the ATF was doing some seriously bad federal, bureaucratic and serious treasonous crimes, can the FBI actually go after those guys accountable?
I don't know. I honestly don't know whether sovereign immunity applies.
It'd be amazing if they did.
Yeah, it would be great. I'm not sure that that's anything that's going to be found to be able to happen in this case. I just think that.
No, I'm just saying theoretically, if it's possible.
Well, now where we go from here? Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting you too, man. Chris from 740 is heading out to shot. By the way, if you're watching my channel, you should probably go watch his too. So
who doesn't? He's Chris from the 740. Who doesn't know him?
That's right. So go if you're not for some reason, go over there and check his out. But anyhow, shit, what was I going to say? I don't know.
Sorry.
I get to run in my mouth and kind of got ahead of myself and lost my train of thought. It got derailed.
Bumpstock case.
So, where does this go from here? There's only one place it can go, folks. This was a U.S. District Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. The only place it can go from here is SCOTUS. That's if they would agree to take it. And that's if the government appeals. I suspect that the government pretty much has to appeal this. They have to. They can't let it stand. They have to hope that there's a Hail Mary involved and that SCOTUS would accept it, and then SCOTUS would rule in their favor. I think one of two things is going to happen. I think the government in either case is going to appeal this. The ATF has to. They can't let themselves be defeated without trying to struggle the entire way. So I think what's going to happen is that either SCOTUS will say, nope, we're not taking this case. We're not taking your appeal. The Fifth Circuit Court did right, so we don't have to take it. Do what they say. Or SCOTUS is going to take it and then put the extra super duper smackdown on it. Given that they just did the Brewing case, I think it's more likely that SCOTUS will refuse to hear it, and then this will become law of the land. That's what I think. Not necessarily of the land. It'll be law in the Fifth Circuit for sure, but it'll be broadly applicable, I think, to all the other circuits. And particularly, well, you know what? I may be wrong, because there was a different case, the Apashian case, that the circuit upheld the ban. So SCOTUS just might take this case to make the decision. I'd forgotten about that. They didn't take the last one because it wasn't, I think maybe they were waiting for this one. So let me change my mind. Here's my prediction. SCOTUS, the government will appeal it to SCOTUS, the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will take it. They'll hear it. And then I think they'll decide in favor of Cargill. They will decide against the government. They will overturn the Bumpstock ban on the grounds, coupled with the EPA case, that 3-letter, 4-letter, whatever, alphabet agencies lack the regulatory authority to change law without going through Congress. That's what I think is going to happen. G23 says, if I get to meet you, Budget, you have to introduce yourself as Budget, not MK. LOL. Hey, y'all call me Budget if you want. That's awesome. That's who I was. I'm the YouTuber formerly known as Budget, right? If Prince can do it, so can I. Or at least that's what I tell myself.
Never thought about
G23 says SCOTUS has to take it because the 6th ruled in favor of the AFT. Yeah, I think you're right. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think that's what's going to happen. SCOTUS is going to take it because of the split in the circuits.
Yep.
And they're going to decide once and for all. And I think they're going to decide in favor of the Second Amendment, in favor of overturning the bump stock ban, because they lack the ATF lacks the constitutional authority to do this. Which means they lack the constitutional authority to do the frames of receivers rule, and they lack the constitutional authority to do the pistol brace rule. So when they drop this pistol brace rule, I ain't turning in shit. Not doing it.
What about the force reset triggers? Is that also on the book still?
That one, yeah, they might be that. This might have an effect on that too. I hadn't thought about that one, because those
binary triggers.
Yeah, binaries and force resets, they don't operate like a machine gun. So, they're not by definition machine guns. They did, in fact, have approval letters from the ATF in both cases. So, wow, yeah. I think the ATF is going to become unraveled here, at least as far as their regulatory authority in 2023, and I think that's a great thing. Well, that assumes the case makes it to SCOTUS in 2023. It might wait till 2024. We'll see.
Well, let's just see this thing unravel.
I suspect someone will grant a stay and injunction in the pistol brace rules and stuff too. That's what I think. I don't think, because I know there are going to be lawsuits filed as soon as that rule drops, guaranteed. And I suspect there will be injunctions granted, and they won't be able to enforce it until after it works its way through the courts.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a beautiful and glorious thing. Because, yeah. All right, that's all I got to talk about today, man. I just wanted to come on and discuss this real quick. I'm glad for you guys that are out there who watch this. I'm sorry that I've taken a bit of a break from it. I needed it. I've been going full tilt at this for years, and I just needed to take a break and kind of recollect myself. Said the 5th already put a TRO on the pistol brace. Awesome. So, yeah, I've kind of got burnt out on doing this. But as a matter of fact, it got to the point that this is all I was doing on my channel. I wasn't doing any other content. And that's not cool. So after SHOT, I've got some stuff coming already. I may have had some conversations, some exchanges with a gun trainer about this new pistol he developed in his marketing. I will probably be getting my hands on one of those. I've got a couple, I've got a folding titanium stove that I got to review, because remember, folks, I do more than just guns. I got a axe that I'm going to be reviewing soon. I have a set of furniture, real high-end furniture for a shotgun for a Mossberg 500 coming to do a review on, and got some other stuff in the works. So after SHOT, I'm going to start cranking these videos out, folks, and back to doing my thing, right? After I get this stuff behind me all dealt with, is I'm going to redo this corner of my studio and make it actually look half decent for you guys. And I'm sure some of you could tell I've got some new lighting. And we're going to get back to doing the right of the people. Hasn't fallen off the earth. It hasn't stopped. It will continue. In the meantime, I'm trying to decide whether or not I should do self-defense shout-outs as just a separate produced content video every week. Let me know in the comments below, folks, if you think that that's a good idea. But other than that, man, I'm glad you guys are out there, and I am, as always, humbled and amazed to see it. Speaking of glad, I'm glad you stopped in to chat with me, Warsaw. Is there anything you'd like to say before we go?
Never give up the fight. We the people have a voice. Stand for your Second Amendment rights.
That's
and
right,
honor
folks.
The Constitution.
That's right, folks. Honor the Constitution. Stand for your Second Amendment rights. Make sure you contact your Congress critters and elected representatives and let them know what you think. Send them an email, snail mail, telephone, telegraph, carrier pigeon, bicycle messenger, semaphore, smoke signals, anything you have to do to let them know what you think. And never, ever, ever give up the fight. I'll see you guys on the next one. Oh, yeah, I need to change this outro too, guys. That'll get done.